What's up, y'all? It's T-Tar, and here's Paradox Pokemon you didn't know you wanted, starting with this one. The silhouette might be a bit confusing, but it is called Burning Rainbow. And while here are the four legs here, the eyes, a lot of this is just the flames. It is a Paradox ancestral Rapidash, described in the Occulture magazine as an ancient goddess of purifying flames. So you can see the real flames and then auroras all around it, implying it's the ancestor to both before something caused them to split off and lose the other half features. You know, of a lot of the designs we looked through in this series, this one has a weird flair to it because Paradox Pokemon from the past usually aren't elegant like this. I would love to uncover a deeper part of Area 0 and see this rarely roaming around. Or, you know, after you've beat the Indigo Disk, if you go to that green room in Scarlet, sometimes you see this just sleeping. If we actually found out Paradox Pokemon was some kind of lie or contradiction, this would actually be kind of cool, just because it sounds like it shouldn't have existed. But yeah, unlike the other two Rapidashes, what this thing has is it's using the fairy features to form those Pegasus wings. It would actually be cool if you encountered this in the wild, if it naturally had fly in its moveset. Okay, then I picked out a couple of weird ones to show you. These are extremely unpopular Pokemon. Let's see if we can make them cool by giving it some kind of backstory or paradox form. And we start with this one. So it has a massive silhouette, right? It looks like some kind of monster. Let's look at the features. It's got claws, like some dragon. Look at this, it's got all this fire up here. But then it's got these leaves for hands. It is actually a relative of the second weakest Pokemon in the game, a Paradox Sunflora. That is kind of wild. So all these Pokemon in the past had to deal with much more brutal conditions and fighting. It's like implying back in the day Sunflora, which has sun in its name, it's a sunflower, actually honed the use of fire and is a grass fire type. It's also called the Joyful Sun, which is pretty fitting how Heath would have described it if it saw the smiling, flaming head walking around. And if this thing had 570 BST, it looks wild. It makes you respect Sunflora. So you put a normal Sunflora beside it. What is it missing? Its leaves don't have the jagged edges anymore. Well, what do you need it for, Joyful Sun? Does it stab people with its leaves? It lost its dinosaur boots? Because I guess Sunflora just like sits in pots, which makes you wonder in the first place, why do they have feet? That's messed up. Imagine you planted plants in your garden and they all got up and left. Like if plants evolved to be able to leave. This creature adores the sun. It runs throughout the day trying to reach it. Once night comes, it falls asleep, sadly waiting for the next day to try to reach the sun again. Look, you're so innocent. The flame on its head grows during the day. If its intensity increases too much, it can decapitate Joyful Sun. So it's a Pokemon that's essentially strongest at noon when the sun is high. Oh, this is crazy. This especially works for photosynthesis. As this creature runs, seeds sprout from its tail and are planted in the ground, giving life to new vegetation. That's actually an amazing idea. The Sunflora plants its offspring itself. I love this so much. I just love being able to give respect to some of the most ass Pokemon ever. I tried raising a Sunflora when I was like 3 years old. I hated it. Okay, but you ready for it's not really a plot twist, but you ready for this? Look at its tail. It has a Sunkern on it. It's cool to see how the backstory could have played out to how we got modern Sunkern and Sunflora today. It really feels like we've been talking about Paradox Pokemon for like 6 years without even knowing what they are properly. But the Indigo Disk is near. We'll figure out soon. So to counterpart this Sunflora in the future is a different sun-themed Pokemon, but it's not what you'd expect, and it's one of the most pathetic Pokemon ever. It's Combi. But the context is this. There's this recent invention in the world called solar beehives, where you build these solar panels on top of a beehive to help provide it energy and heat. It looks weird like this. The idea is in the future they would have done this, but eventually when something goes wrong, the electricity builds up or something, you get a madness like this. It is called Iron Hive. And listen, I'm all for ideas like this. The future paradoxes all look weird to me because they look the same. So technically it's a future paradox of Combi, which are like groups of 3 worker bees. So there's our little Combi there with this little LCD panel. But there's also another and a bunch of others. This is more like the Hive itself taking off and becoming its own new Pokemon, with lightning going everywhere and these like 4 jets keeping it up. And of course, it's listed as a bug electric type. See, while the artwork is crazy, if you close your eyes and just imagine this, and you found it in areas and you're fighting it, it's actually kind of nice. I must have said this like 83 times. I don't know why Game Freak did future Pokemon the way they were, showing them as like experiments gone wrong or something flawed in the future that made them look different than their modern selves would have been much better. In modern cities, you see large Iron Hive models that produce clean energy, boosting the technological and economic development of cities. Oh, so if you ever were to go to the future world, you would see non-living versions of these all over the place. In fact, they're not just using it to make honey, they're using it for energy as well. For an Iron Hive to work correctly, it's necessary to have the masterpiece, which works as a power regulator, and the leader of the hive. So that's why the main one has that red dot, which also seems like a reference to combi. So normal combis look like this, but only the female ones have that orange spot. So it's like the future people needed a female combi to be at the front for this to work. That's pretty cool. It's also a cool like alternative path for combi. So we have the queen bee that runs the hive, but this is almost like equivalent because it's the entire hive itself. So these two on screen, if you could snap your finger and make one of them real, which one would you pick? So we started with the weird, now we're gonna end with the badass. Man, you're not gonna be able to tell this silhouette. It is a past version of a very popular Pokemon. I can kind of help a bit. If you show these, there is a serpent body under there. You got some fins here. Okay, it kind of looks like a Fraligator. And then the signature whiskers. It is an ancient Gyarados relative, but it looks much different than normal Gyarados. It's almost like just Gyarados' grandpa. Its name is Gale Serpent, and it's got all these extra spikes on its body, 2 giant fins midway through that kind of act as wings, another 2 behind its head, as well as 2 beside its face. So what's really cool about this design is you can kind of see it. There's a resemblance to Mega Gyarados in it, but it's not on the forefront like Roaring Moon. It almost makes it feel like Gyarados was much bigger of a creature, and when you Mega Evolve modern Gyarados, you only bring out a tiny sliver of that potential. So quite fittingly, the 2 best typings for it is a Dragon Flying type, which is the classic Dragon typing, you know, Dragonite Salamence, but it fits it well, it's out of the sea. Or it could be the fabled Water Dragon type, where it's the king of the sea. Though Dragon Flying seems the best, so that when you look at modern Gyarados, you know just where that flying came from. Could you imagine finding this pool of water deep in Area 0 where no Pokemon really swim, but very rarely, like literally like 1 in 100 chance, sometimes you'll see the ancient Gyarados swimming there. Or if you're playing Pokemon Violet, this, its counterpart. It's the only Pokemon that works as Gyarados' counterpart, and one of the coolest and most elegant Pokemon in the game. The Game Freak just never gives attention to. No regional forms, no Mega, no G-Max or anything. This one's name is Iron Mermaid, and it is a metal-plated version of Milotic, which looks exactly like something Game Freak would make, but it still has some extra features. Like, the metal plates and the top of its head come out more to look like dragon scales. I'm not usually a fan of future Pokemon, but I'll take anything for Milotic. And yeah, its typing is a Water Fairy type. It's been a long time coming. So I ask you the question again, right? If you could make one of these real only with the snap of your finger, and the other one goes away forever, which would you pick? Make sure I'll shank that like button and let me know a paradox idea you have, and I'll show you more of these next time. Take care.